All right. Well, we are live, and we may be live with some technical issues on Steven's part, but we're going to just keep going and hope that it fixes itself. Well, everyone, welcome to episode 31, where business meets friendship, the social elements of networking. I am really excited to welcome Monique Richards to the show. We met last week because of Monique and my brother networking and connecting and whatever. And we are super glad that you are here because we had a guest cancel and you jumped in at the last minute, which is amazing. So thank you so much. Monique is been in Boston for the past year. Her background is in biotech. She had a Fulbright scholarship and was in Germany. At one point, she has a biotech degree a master's degree from Yale. She's done about 7 years of sales and business development in the biotech field, but most importantly, she is an avid networker, and she has her own networking group called the After Work Hangout. It's on meetup.com, and they just hit 1,000 members. So congratulations. That is amazing. Monique, before we dive into like how you got to 1,000 member network and whatever, we like to ask our guests, the first thing we like to ask our guests is, what's one cool networking event you've been to recently?
Let's see. I typically like networking groups that have free food and alcohol. And I went to one last week. It was like a Canadian entrepreneurship networking. It was a really cool opportunity. Met a lot of amazing people. I'll be meeting up with one of them one-on-one this coming Friday. But that would be the most recent one that I went to that I enjoyed.
Cool. Go ahead, Amelia.
That's exciting. I used to be part of the Canadian Entrepreneurs of New England Association. So what was the Canadian event about?
Yeah, it was interesting because they also had government members as well that were talking about advocating and helping people start businesses between the two countries.
Yeah.
And I got to really pick their brains and understand, well, how do they exactly go about it? I love to get outside of my comfort zone to see what other fields are out there. There are people in biotech, there are people in tech and all sorts of things.
So Monique, one of the things, so this, as you know, this is a podcast about networking in Boston, and you are a perfect guest to start with this question that we often ask people, which is, so you came to Boston about a year ago. Tell us a little bit about how you got started networking in a new city, and importantly, we often ask people, is networking in Boston any different than networking anywhere else, or is it the same? Like, are there differences, or are we...
I guess my follow-up question to you would be, can you say hi? Honestly, that's where it all starts. Can you say hi to someone? Can you get outside of your own head of worrying about, oh, people here are so mean? Like, I'm originally from Chicago, the Midwest. We have the Pope now. I just want to say that. And, just saying hi and just getting out there, not worrying about it. That's the best place where I've started. And through that, I made amazing friends at random places, Trader Joe's. Like, I go grocery shopping, say hi to someone there. I got some really good recipes from people too. And just being clear of what I'm looking for. I'm looking for people that are like-minded and fun to be around, because what's the point if you're not having fun and enjoying life? Mm-hmm. And that's where I would start. Just say hi and get out your own head.
Right. And so are people nicer in Chicago or Boston?
So I will put it this way: what you put out into the work, you end up getting back.
Doesn't matter.
But yes, you're friendlier in Chicago.
But I like that message. Like, it's about you. Like, you are the Cool. Well, so you've already started to dive into this idea of like advice you have for folks. Did you start the After Work Hangout after you moved to Boston, or you've been building that for a while?
I started it when I moved because I love the platform meetup.com. It's just a all sorts of people that are in all sorts of fields. Some people are runners. I'm not a runner, but running seems to be a big thing here in Boston. So they have networking groups for that, arts and crafts, all sorts of things. And I just went to one and I thought I could do this better. And so I said, you know what, do it. So I started, I had like networked with people out and about, shaking hands. And I was talking to one of my friends, and she's a very successful entrepreneur, done great things. And I was telling her, like, I don't have time to get coffee with everyone that I meet. Like, that's just taking up too much time. And she says, why don't you put together an event? And I said, no, you don't understand. They don't know each other. She's like, yeah, I do understand that part. Put together events. So I put the two together, like I could do better at this meetup, and I can invite people to it. And then it's just kind of grown from there. Like when it's just been a lot of fun. My first event was in September or August of last year. So that's when I officially got going. And starting in January, I started putting on the events. Well, for 3 months, it was 3 events every month, which was a lot. And now I'm doing it every other week for now, either on a Tuesday or Thursday, just having fun and just getting out there. Yeah.
So what kind of people come to these events?
Oh my gosh, you never know who's going to show up, which is the fun part. Yeah. It's amazing. One of my favorite events so far was called Thirsty Thursday. And it was at the Aeronaut Brewery in Somerville. It was Thirsty Thursday drunk coloring. So I brought coloring books and like color pencils, and so many people showed up. I was surprised that more men showed up, and people had a lot of fun. People are in tech and biotech, looking for the next job, whatever. And it's just been really cool.
That's awesome. And so do you have regulars who come? I'm sorry, I'm asking.
And I have regulars now too, which is cool. And I look, oh, this person's coming in. Oh, this person's coming again.
And you started this really to build a community. So have you found, obviously moving from Boston or from Chicago to the Boston area is, it's still a city, but there are definitely different vibes. How is would that help with the adjustment, building your own group?
I mean, I came here knowing absolutely no one, and I did not want to keep it that way. Previously, I was living in New York City for the past 5 years. But when I moved here, I just came for work. But, we're more than just our job and finding value outside of work. So you're not going to work, coming home, watching Netflix and Amazon or whatever. I said, no, I know I'm not the only one that feels this way. So that's how I really approached getting out there and shaking hands and making friends. And so my best friends I've met that way. So.
Absolutely.
Well, that's just interesting you say that, because we have talked about that. I think it's come up on many episodes.
I was just going to say, Monique, what has been your...
Go ahead, Steve. I think Steven, you're still on a delay. I'm gonna keep going and hopefully we'll figure out the tech issue. But but at any rate, and I don't even remember where I was going with that. But I think I love this idea of how intentional you were about building sort of a social network, because fundamentally a social network is sort of the foundation of any network. And so I think where I was going to say before was that this idea that people make friends through networking is something that comes up a lot on this show. And so I'm interested in sort of your thoughts on sort of friendship networking versus business networking, or are they the same thing?
I just live my life. That's how I put it. I don't know where people are going to fit. I don't go in expecting anything from them. I just go with the intentionality of I would like to get to know this person a little bit more and see if there's alignment. And, sometimes you get business deals from it. Like I've worked in sales, business development, or you get connected to folks that they know that they can connect you with. Or sometimes you just get a friend that's like, hey, come over. We're going to hang out, play some games. That's how I would put it. I think people get scared by the term networking, when again, it's just saying hi to someone and getting to know them and maybe exchanging some sort of contact. I normally just exchange phone numbers. Instagram's too distracting for me. So I just exchange and say hi. That's it.
Amazing. Stephen, do you want to try again?
Oh, you put it in the chat. My question is,
okay.
what has been the process behind curating the group? How has it evolved 8 months? Part of it has been places that I've wanted to go, and I just put on the group and say, hey, we're going to meet here on Tuesday. And then folks show up, and then I share that with all the contacts that I've made along the way, people that I've met in random places. I think it's been mainly organic, and some of the friends that come, they bring their own friends. I don't know, it's kind of evolved very naturally, and some folks can find it on the meetup.com app looking for interesting things to do. And I think that's how it's grown.
We've lost him again.
Yeah, I guess Stephen's internet's really bad today.
It happens on a live podcast. It is what it is. All right.
We have fun with it. You never know.
So, Monique, I loved your answer to how do you start networking, and it was more, well, can you just say hi?
Yeah.
But I want to dig a little bit deeper into that. Mm-hmm. And when did you start using the term networking? Because it seems like you've always networked just because that's your personality and you want to connect people and meet people. But how did just your natural personality and wanting to get to know people, how did you translate that into, no, I'm actually now building a network of people?
Mm-hmm. I think it starts with intentionality and knowing your goals. I was actually, I'll mention a previous episode that you guys had. It was Brittany, correct? That was on there. And I just loved her mindset where she said, you just need to know your core values, what's important to you, and not change it based on who you're talking to. So I started out, okay, this is who I am. This is the kind of person that I want, the kind of lifestyle that I want. And when I lived in New York, I did a lot of networking and talked to a lot of people. Maybe it was not as clear focused as it is now.
Right.
But it started with, let me find people who are in life where I want to be. Let me learn how they do things a little differently. And I've learned from various different people how to network with intentionality and follow up, because a lot of people mess up with follow up. They'll have fantastic conversations and then boom. Nothing happens. I work on it too. When you have so many people, oh gosh, I got to go. And after this, I'll be responding to folks on LinkedIn. But going back to your question, I don't have a clear answer for that. I think I've just studied people. I've studied books, and having a positive attitude has helped a ton, because if you go out there and you do not a lot of networking, you have a negative attitude, people feel that. And there's actually been research that has gone into like, there is a study, someone told me about it this past weekend, where they took sweat samples from a group of people that were jumping out and skydiving, and they took sweat from people just running on a treadmill. And then they had a third group that looked at normal pictures, like you can't really tell, but they smelled the sweat. And the folks that were skydiving, they could feel the fear. It was a very interesting study versus, like there's people talk about, the vibe wasn't right. But there's something to be said about the vibe. And thankfully, scientists are studying the vibe. And I love to learn what's going on there. It was like a 2015 paper. I
talk about the vibe a lot.
Yeah. And it's real. We can feel it. So, yeah.
So one of the things I'd love to hear you talk about is, so you are a scientist, right? I mean, you've got all these molecular biology and cellular biology, studies, degrees, whatever. And the stereotype of scientists is that they don't network, they don't like to do the stuff, whatever. Yeah. So what is my first question is, what is your take on that stereotype? Is it just wrong, or is it true? And what is your advice specifically for people in the sciences network?
I won't say it's entirely wrong. That's why. So I was at the bench. And when I say I was at the bench, I was, if you watch any movies and they have those pipettes and they have the gloves and the gowns, like that was me. And it was not me. I could not do that. It was not the kind of lifestyle that I was looking for. Some people love it. They're like, leave me alone. Let me just do my research. If you want to talk about my research, then I'm more interested, or else I don't care. But scientists come in all shapes and forms, just like in any industry. I'm the scientist that likes to talk about the science, but don't put me in the lab. I do not want to go back there. No, thank you.
That's fair.
And I would, if people are of the science type, but they want to make friends, just stick with people that are doing the kind of things that you like. And I think that's a good place to start, is say, hey, what are some of your hobbies?
Yeah.
Oh, you like to play games? Okay, go and find a group that likes to get together and play games, or connect with some of your scientist friends and say, hey, when's your incubation period? Or when are you doing that? Oh, let's get together in the break room. And I don't know, there's so many. You just have to get creative and try something and be okay with the failing, which things always fail in the lab. So be okay with trying something in the networking world and knowing that it's going to fail. It's okay.
Yeah. No, totally. That brings me, I was at an event the other week, actually, and someone said, I love that you just brought up like asking people what their hobbies are, because it was just a really interesting conversation I had with this man. And he has lived all over the world, and he was saying, it's funny, in America, if you ask someone what they do, the first thing they always say is what they do for work, what their job is. But and so you have, and I said, well, yeah, that's because you have to specify. Like, what do you do for work? What do you do for fun? He's like, yeah, but in other countries where I've worked, he said, if you ask someone, what do you do? They immediately talk about their hobbies. So it's just interesting that in America, we always talk about, especially I think Jeff, I know me and Jeff and Monique, we all network in a business setting a lot as well. So it's natural when you say, what do you do? People talk about work. But then on the other side of it is when you're building relationships at networking, we always say it's not about work. It's about relationships. It's about building trust. So I love that you pivot and really specify what is your hobby, because you're allowing these people to really, you're allowing anyone to get to know you, and and open up in a way where they're not just their job. They're the things that they are outside of their job, which is what makes them interesting.
Exactly. Find their heart, find their, what makes their heart beat and helps them get up every single day, whether it's their families or, like you're saying, their hobbies, or maybe it's some sort of initiative that they've started in their job or whatnot. It's a lot more fun when you finally get to someone's heart. And I feel like that works best when you're face to face with someone in person, whether you're at the grocery store or the networking events or in the walking down the sidewalk, Oh,
100%. So obviously you host your own events.
Yes.
You go to a lot of events. Yeah. What are your favorite types of events?
I've gone to some where you just sit there and listen to a speaker. I don't like those as much, but I do learn a lot from them. It's more fun when you're talking, I feel.
Fair.
I just do. If you're in meetings all day and after work, you got to be in more meetings. I'd like to be on rooftops with fun views. Yeah. Like I said, free food, free alcohol. Like, hey, I like that kind of stuff. And when it's not too professional, or there can be some low key aspects of it where you can, lay back a little bit.
So I'm gonna pick your brain for a second, because we have been, the Wicked Connected crew, we have been talking about doing live events, for like months and months and months, and it's like we just never quite figure it out, because we're always like, well, we have to find a place to do it, and then we got to invite people and blah blah. But clearly, you have figured out a formula that gets like lots of people to show up in different places. And so I'd love to hear, like, what advice do you have to a couple of networkers trying to build an event? What would you tell us to do?
It's gonna be kind of simple, because I don't think that hard when it comes to the events that I put on. I just find a place. Let's say a good place, if you're gonna have a lot of room, without needing to call the place in advance and be like, hey, can we have something here? Because sometimes they say, no, I don't feel like that. Like the Aeronaut Brewery, let's say, for example, they're not even sponsoring me. I should have, whatever. Anyway, but find a place that's going to accommodate a lot of people, and post that. Say, we're meeting here at this time, period. That's it. Now you got a link, and then Send it out.
So what you're saying is we're overthinking it.
100%. I'm so sorry you are. Yeah, it's okay. But now we can get out of your own way and just, you can do that. And it took me like maybe 30 minutes to schedule 9 different events because I talked to friends. Like, I don't know Boston that well, so I know people that do. And I say, hey, where should I have the next one? So my next one isn't in a couple weeks. Is that Hennessy or something? I don't even know where it is. We'll all find out.
I had my 5-year high school reunion there. I did not go.
Oh, well, now you will go to my event. It's going to be so much
fun. You're going to have to go to an event.
I know.
Yes, but that's it. Just pick a place, pick a time, post it.
Don't overthink it. I like that.
Yeah, we were definitely overthinking it there, Jeff.
Okay.
We were like, we need a room, we need chairs, we need special invites.
Yeah.
Or we can collaborate. We'll talk offline. I
was going through my head.
I think that's it. If you can't do it, find someone that will.
Would be at Aeronaut Brewery. We're just gonna be like, I don't know what that is, but I'm still going.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, so we often ask people the question, what is your advice for people who are just starting to do networking and maybe a little fearful? I know like they just say hi, but like how do you get over that fear?
You do it.
You just
I'm sorry, it's not a fun answer. You just have to make the decision that you will do it.
Answer too.
Yeah. You're like, I
just do it.
Yeah. Like have 5 seconds of courage and say, I'm going to go out after work, before work. I don't care, whatever. It doesn't matter. And just say hi. I don't care if you say hi and run away. Good. You got your rep and you said it.
Right.
And eventually you'll start building up.
But it's so interesting because there's a guy I was talking to recently and he's sort of, looking, he's in the job market, whatever. And, I asked him about networking. He's like, I've tried that. It doesn't work. I'm like, well, okay, what, I was talking, you mentioned the episode with Brittany Fowler or whatever. And she says that like 80% of jobs come from networking.
Yeah.
Whatever. And I'm just sitting there like, okay, like how many events did you go to? Like, what do you mean it doesn't work? Like, whatever. So I think this person like probably had gone to like 3 events or 4 events and like didn't get a job. And it was like, well, that's not, that's not the measure of this. And so, fast forward many, many months later, and I see this person again, and they're like, well, I'm going to an event. Because I was like, you got to go to more events. I was like, why don't you just I just picked a random event. I'm like, this is an event that has nothing to do with anything you do at all. So it's a perfect event for you to go to because if you screw up, like these are people that they're not even, like let's say this guy was in banking and this was like a biotech thing. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, just go screw it up. It doesn't matter, whatever. And so this person, here's like months and months later, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to this event. I'm like, oh, okay, awesome. Like whatever. And I don't mean to like call that person out. I'm just saying, so
for a lot of people say that.
People are just like so afraid. And I know this because even a year ago, I wouldn't, a year and a half ago, I was probably doing a lot of networking, but a year and a half ago, I would not have gone. Right. And even, you've met my brother. My brother is like an amazing networker on LinkedIn. He just connects with people all the time. He connected with you. That's how you ended up here. But when I'm like, hey, let's go to a in-person event, he's actually he's really good at it. Right. But he's like, I don't know. I don't like these in-person events. So like, there's something that like, apparently you don't have that character trait, or did you ever have that character trait? You were afraid of it, or
how do I put it? Because I don't want people to feel as though in order to network, they have to be in an official place to network that says networking event. You can do this anywhere. So if I were talking to someone, let's say, for example, whoever's listening or watching, if you're like, I don't even know how to get started, find me on LinkedIn. We'll get coffee. We'll chat. Honestly, that's how you get started. And a lot of times, if you go to a grocery store, just say hi. I tend to be nosy and I look in people's carts. I mean, that's just my personality. Do what fits you and say, ooh, what are you making for dinner? I'm looking for inspiration. Not everybody's going to do that, but you know.
We had a podcast the other day and Rick said the same thing. He's like, I network at the gas station.
Yeah.
Right.
And networking doesn't have to be in a professional sense, which I think this podcast very much started out that way of, hey, we all do networking from a business perspective. I think, Jeff, what I think you're describing too, and Monique, you can totally tell me I'm wrong here, but I pick up that you're more of an extrovert. Whereas,
100%, yes.
Yeah. And Jeff, I know you and your brother are a little bit more on the introverted side.
Yeah, probably.
So I think that that's probably the difference of, but we have a lot of really great networkers who come on this podcast who are introverts. And I think that's actually, this is what I've noticed is the introverts on the podcast are very strategic of, yes, I go to these events. I try to curate this type of audience. The extroverts are like, nah, I just talked to people at the gas station. I mean, like I met my best friend, like going to the ice cream shop the other day and I asked them what they wanted for ice cream and I got the same thing and then we became friends over it. Yeah. So it's just kind of getting out of your comfort zone for the introverts and the extroverts.
I'll say, maybe this can help. I can share what I struggled with when I was originally starting to network, and that was talking too much and not actually listening to what the other person says. As an extrovert, you can be like, blah, 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 oh my God, da, 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 da. But you're not actually connecting. Same thing for an introvert. If you're not even saying hi or getting out the way, you're not connecting. So in both situations, you're not connecting.
Right.
We both have our hurdles to overcome. And I think perhaps as an introvert, one could be more cautious with their energy. So they're not going to be blah, blah, blah talking. They'll be listening more and not, they'll have it done in maybe 2-3 minutes. But as an extrovert, I could be there for the next 15 minutes talking to a complete stranger on a sidewalk. Like it's not necessarily good, but that's something I had to work on. And I worked on it by finding people that were good at it. So let's say, for example, it may not be your friend that talks about how networking is difficult, but whoever it is, find someone that's good at that.
Yeah.
Find someone that is intentional about it and has studied it. I didn't just wake up one day like, oh, finally, I'm so good at networking. No, I look like an idiot a bunch of times.
Right. Yeah.
And like put my foot in my mouth. Like, what am I saying? Like, what are these words? Am I speaking English?
Right. And it's so important you bring that up. It's like, it's the balancing act of being able to actively listen, but also being able to ask the appropriate questions. Because we've all been in both situations where you're just sitting there and you're just like, wow, I just like drilled this person with 1,000 questions. And now I'm exhausted because I keep crafting to think of more questions to ask them to get them to keep talking. And you've been on the other side of it where you're like, wow, this person won't shut up. Like, I love it. I love when people talk and I think it's so great. And I love listening to their stories. But there are times where you're like, wow, I wanted to say something and I literally couldn't. So it's finding that perfect balance of being an introvert and an extrovert in many ways, of being able to listen to what people are saying, process it, build a relationship, and ask questions. And once you master both of those things, you're on the up and up. And Jeff, I know what you're going to say because I just looked at the time.
Yes. I'm like, this half an hour has flown by. This has been an amazing conversation, Monique. Really, really appreciate again that you jumped on at the last minute, and so great to have you on. So we our wrap up. We usually more people, but the technology didn't agree with us today. So our wrap up is we always like to ask, starting with our guests, what's one cool networking event that you are going to in the near future, like in the next week or so?
I think there's something happening this Saturday I saw on Meetup. I just sometimes scroll on Meetup and look for interesting things. And this one looks like it's outside at a brewery or beer garden. So I'm going to go to that. Fun. But my next event is in 2 weeks, as I just had one last week. But yeah.
Awesome. And Monique, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
Yes. Find me on LinkedIn. Just look up my name, and maybe type in Yale sometime. That typically shows up when you put the two, like where I went to school. Also going on meetup.com and finding my group After Work Hangout and become a member, which is just clicking a button. And you can keep up with all the events that are going on, and that's the best way. Or find me out and about. I go to Trader Joe's sometimes, so you might see me there.
Awesome. Well, Amelia, you jumped in, and asked my usual questions. I'm gonna let you go first, and I'll go last.
Okay. So, I actually don't have a ton of networking that I'm doing this week, which I'm, it's good and bad. So I have an FEI event, and I'm looking at it's M&A. So it's a event on the market of mergers and acquisitions. So I'm really excited to see. The market's been kind of dead for the last few years, and it's starting to pick up. But the market's still a little bit weird, especially just on, everything on the economy right now. So I'm excited to hear what the perspective is, if things are picking up, if they're going to see. So I feel like I've been hearing it's going to pick up in 6 months. I've been hearing that for 2 years. So let's see what the actual trend is. And then something I'm also really excited about, it's like a little passion project of mine. I am starting a Women in Business breakfast club. Oh, so wow. We have 6 women that I've met through networking that we're all bringing together, and we're trying to build a referral network. Mm-hmm. So we have our first virtual meeting on Friday, and I'm really excited because I've never organized like an event like this, and I'm excited to bring all these women together because every time I talk to any one of them, I just feel wonderful and like they just light up the world. So I'm so excited to bring them all together and see if we can create this like power group of women's referrals that we pass business back and forth through.
Amazing. I love that. Well, I will say I also do not have much by way of networking events this week. I actually have I was so like drowning in stuff for the last month and a half that I have sort of slowed down. So I've like got a bunch of one-on-one coffees this week, but not networking events. And so I'm just going to do the one-on-one thing for a little bit. And actually, I mean, one-on-one networking is amazing. I mean, I think coffee with I actually think I snuck in. I think my brother had coffee set up with Monique, but when they were chatting back and forth, he was like, "Oh, my brother Jeff has a networking podcast, and they need a guest for Monday." And so we ended up talking before you ended up having coffee with her.
It was funny.
Anyway, so great to have you on. This was an awesome conversation. Love your message, your energy. Love what you're doing. It's amazing. Thank you so much. And we'll be back next week. And I can't wait to go to one of your events, Monique. So
yeah,
thank you so much.
Connected crew.
Yes.